The Fujifilm X-T5 or the Fujifilm X-H2, which one should you get? At the time of this recording, the X-T5 has actually not been publicly announced yet. And at the time of this recording, I actually have not tested or tried out the X-T5. So why the hell am I making this video? Well, I've noticed that whenever a new Fujifilm camera model is launched, typically only the large YouTube channels with large followings will get the pre-production model to test. But those channels tend to be video-centric channels, and more importantly, those channels tend to be run by creators who do not shoot with the Fujifilm system as their primary camera of choice. I, on the other hand, am a professional photographer that shoots with and relies on the Fujifilm cameras for my day-to-day professional work. And I also document my daily life with my family using Fujifilm cameras. So I'm a Fujifilm enthusiast. I am actually an official Fujifilm ambassador, and I know the camera system in and out. And if you're a Fujifilm photographer looking to decide between if you should get the new XH2 or the new X-T5, or if you should just stick with the tried and true X-T4, I feel confident that in this video I can help you make that decision. So now enter the Fujifilm X-T5. Everything is going back to the origin of that X-T lineup. It is compact, it is lightweight, it has the same image quality for stills that we know and love, especially the Fujifilm film simulations, and it brings us back to the pursuit and the joy of that analog operation. So we have our dedicated shutter speed, ISO, and aperture dials all back, and for those who hate the PASM dials, this is a breath of fresh air to be paired with the better sensor and the better processor. In short, the X-T5 is that photography first photocentric camera that we've been waiting for. It's released at $1699, which is the same price that the X-T4 was launched at, and we get our three-way tilt screen back, just like the Fujifilm X-T3. Like, I have been waiting for this camera for quite some time, using all these other different cameras with the vari-angle screen, and I'm just not sold on it. So this Fujifilm X-T5 gets the 5th generation sensor and processor that's taken from the X-H2, and it also has the improved AF algorithms from the X-H2 as well. So we're getting the 40 megapixels, the lower ISO 125 kind of dynamic range, and the X-T5 also has the 160 megapixel pixel shift capability, which is going to be really something fun to play around with. And then it also gets the improved electronic shutter from the X-H2, which is 1/180,000th of a second. It's like wicked fast. And I really think the more impressive kind of like improvements are kind of subtle and not really as noticeable, but the fact that the projected area of the camera, so the length and the width of the camera, is actually equivalent to the X-T1, which is smaller than the X-T3 and smaller than the X-T4, and the overall weight of the camera is actually 50 grams lighter than the X-T4, despite it still having that IBIS unit. It has the same grip from the X-T4. As far as the viewfinder, it actually has the same type of resolution and frames per second of the X-T4's viewfinder, except that it has a improved magnification. And the battery life is actually better than the X-T4, despite it having the same exact battery at 740 frames that it's rated at. As far as the shutter kind of like durability, it has the 1/8000 mechanical shutter with the same 15 frames per second mechanical shutter kind of capability, but it is improved at a 500,000 cycle durability. So as far as those professional still photographers that want to have a lot of life in terms of their shutter, this is going to be great news. And then we have an improved 0.5 stop in-body image stabilization, which is over the 6.5 stops of the X-T4. So the video side of things is not the main draw of this particular camera model, but we do get the 6.2K 30p improvement over the 4K 60p that the Fujifilm X-T4 had. For most photographers, even pro photographers, this is going to be the camera that you really should be choosing, considering the cost, as well as those who don't prioritize video as much in comparison to the X-H2 or the X-H2S. The X-T5 is compact, great image quality, film simulations that we know and love. We got the improved electronic shutter, sensor, and autofocus from the X-H2 with in-body image stabilization, but we have the classic aesthetics, the retro aesthetics of the XT line that I personally was drawn to the XT series for. and getting away from that PASM, which a lot of people don't like. So I feel like is the decision made for a lot of photographers, including me, which is why I sold my XT3s, and I literally have just pre-ordered, or at least to my future self, I've pre-ordered this camera with my hard-earned cash. Nobody sponsored me to buy it, and yeah, I'm excited to get this camera. So if you're deciding between the XH2 and the XT5, like where would the decision be made? And that really comes into the video side of things. So what you won't get is you won't get a full-size HDMI port that you do get on the XH2. You won't be able to have the ability to record internal ProRes to the camera, which is something that the XH2 and the XH2S has the ability to do. And you also don't have that CF Express Type B memory card slot. Instead, the XT5 has a dual UHS-2 SD card slots, which I actually prefer because SD cards are a lot more cost efficient for stills. I think two other main considerations that you have to think about is that the XH2S and the XH2 have the ability for a vertical battery grip, or that new kind of like FTP wireless transfer grip for the kind of like wireless capabilities. So if that's something that you're interested in terms of flagship capabilities and having a more robust grip, that's where you're going to want to have the XH2 or the XH2S instead. And now for the final kind of like quick fire comparison between the XT5 and the XH2. If you still haven't been able to make the decision, on the XT5 you don't get the PASM, instead you get the analog dials. And they both have the X-Trans 5 HR sensor with the X processor 5, which gives us both 40 megapixels. Both of those cameras, they also both have the 160 megapixel pixel shift, and they also both have the same ISO range, the same electronic shutter range, and the same mechanical shutter range. And the difference really comes in the video resolution. For the XH2 has 8K and the XT5 has 6.2K, and also the viewfinder resolution is a little bit different, with the XH2 at 5.76 million dots at 120 frames per second for that refresh rate, and then the XT5 has 3.69 million dots at 100 frame per second. So it's not a huge difference, but if you're keeping track of that stuff, you got to know that the LCD of the new 3-way tilt actually has improved resolution at 1.84 million dots, whereas the XH2 has 1.62 million dots, and that's the very angle, like the flip out screen. Another consideration is you have to think about the headphone port. The XT5 does not have a headphone port, but it does have a dedicated mic jack. The XH2 has both the mic jack and the headphone port. And with that, I think the decision is pretty clear. If you are a stills photographer, that's really your main bread and butter. The XT5 is the one to go to unless you're looking for kind of like the grip side of things and the ergonomics of that. On the other hand, if you want the true flagship for stills as well as having that improved resolution for video, that's where the XH2 is going to come in. So my question to you is, which camera are you going to get? The XT5? Are you going to get the XH2? Maybe the XH2S, maybe you're going to stick with the XT4, or hey, maybe you have the tried and true XT3, and let me know down in the comments.